What is your craziest story where a patient present with mild symptoms thinking it was nothing, and it turned out to be a serious life or death situation? Story 1. Patient's wife called. Patient had a temperature of 98.6. No other symptoms. I explained that was a normal temperature, but the wife said, "That's a fever for him." She said she felt like something was wrong, despite no other symptoms. I told her that I respect that, and that if she feels something is wrong, she should get him checked out in the ER. The ER doctor called 4 hours later and said they did all they could do for him, but he died of sepsis. He appeared to be normal when he got there, but rapidly declined. That gave me a new appreciation that we truly can't evaluate someone thoroughly over a telephony. Story 2. My husband felt like he had a mild cold, so we went to the clinic. The nurse took his vitals and said, She went to get a second nurse to take his vitals. She said, They went to get the doctor and he took the vitals and said, He then told us to go to the emergency room. Straight there, don't stop on the way at all. We were extremely confused and went to the ER where they tried diligently to get him to stay overnight. They could not legally force us to stay, but they tried. They finally convinced us that this was truly serious and not just a bug. I still didn't understand how bad it was until I called his mom, who is a nurse. I said he had sepsis, and she got really quiet and asked what the prognosis was. I said he's fine. He is in the hospital on 3 different kinds of antibiotics. It's okay. Then I went on the internet to figure out what sepsis actually was. And it's the 10th leading cause of death in America. It all turned out fine. The antibiotics killed whatever it was, and we found the pus-filled cyst, and the doctor drained it. It was hidden an inch or so beneath his skin. No idea how he got it or even how long it had been there before it ruptured. But it still scares me how close we brushed up against death without knowing. Story 3. My dad died of sepsis. The night before was my birthday. We had supper with them. He warned me not to hug him because he thought he was getting sick. He went to work the next morning, feeding cattle, and came home at lunchtime. Called his doc for an APT. Doc said do some blood work first at the local clinic and then head up here. 1-hour drive, so they did. They went home. Doc got results and told my mom to load him up right now and take him to the ER. Dad told mom he was going to lay back and close his eyes while she put her shoes on. He never woke up. His appendix had ruptured at some point and he developed sepsis. Go to the doctor if you're in major pain. Story 4. I'm a nurse, not a doctor. But we had a guy come in years ago asking for a medication to help him stop sweating. He said he had had a sore throat for about a week, went to a walk-in clinic, was diagnosed with strep throat and put on antibiotics, but he was so sweaty and just wanted a break from it. He looked pale and was indeed sweaty, so we took him back and ran some blood tests. His white blood count was the highest I've ever seen, and he was diagnosed with leukemia. We sent him to another hospital for immediate treatment, but we were informed he died literally hours after arriving. Incredibly sad. I couldn't believe it. Story 5. Saw a patient with minor cardiovascular symptoms and a slight pain in his upper back. The senior debated back and forth whether it would make sense to run a CT to rule out anything more serious. She finally decided to do it, and it turned out he had a massive aortic dissection and was basically wheeled right into the OR. Story 6. I'm a dentist. New PT came in with what he thought was a mild ache in his teeth. Thought it was a toothache. Hadn't seen a dentist in years. Took a radiograph and the jawbone around the teeth looked strange. Had him see an oral surgeon that day. Turned out was a very aggressive metastatic bone cancer and died a few weeks later. Story 7. That sucks. My mom was a dentist assistant until her retirement. The dentist she worked with had a similar case. He had a patient whose mouth had a weird spot. The other dentist didn't think it was a problem, but he didn't like it, and called an oral surgeon himself. The patient was seen the same day. As far as I can remember, they were in time but had to remove a piece of the jaw and tongue. With some reconstruction and a speech therapist, he got function back. I'm a physical therapist myself, and had a patient once, a couple of years ago, so I'm not too sure about the details anymore, that had mild but persistent health complaints. He was a market vendor. It was fall, and was coughing, and just didn't feel good. His GP kept sending him home saying it's just a cold. Part of the problem was, This guy didn't speak our local language fluently, so I don't think he could tell the doctor the right things. But after seeing him a couple of times, it just felt off. So I sent him back to the GP with specific questions and things to say. He got sent to a specialist, and it turned out he had lung cancer, which already spread too far. He died shortly after his diagnosis. The thing that got to me most was him thanking me for sending him back to the GP, even though he knew nothing could be done. But he said that at least now he could spend some time with his family. Last story was my mom. She had hot flashes. Not too weird for a person in menopause, except my mom, 68 then. Already went through it 10 years before. Thought it was nothing but annoying and went to her GP to see if there was something that could be done about it. GP gave her hormone pills and they worked, so my mom went back to get a refill. GP sent her straight through to the hospital for a chest x-ray. Turned out she had lung cancer, but it was very early stage. After 6 weeks of radiation, 2 chemos, and a year of immunotherapy, she was free of it. It's so important to trust your instincts if you feel something is off, even if it looks to be minor. It can change so much of the outcome. Story 8. My dad woke up with severe back pain one morning after not doing anything strenuous the days leading up to it. My mom flipped her shit and finally put her foot down that he had to go to the doctor after him putting off going to a doctor for years, even for a routine checkup. That appointment showed a broken rib from a huge tumor on his spine, along with tumors around his buttocks, pelvis, and upper back. Diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. 5 years and 100 treatments later, he's still kicking it. Story 9. Still in school, and I was not present for this patient's initial admission, but rather her clinic follow-up. However, patient was healthy 50-something-year-old who had an extended nosebleed after a long hike. It wouldn't stop, so they went to ER to get it cauterized, impacted. Happens all the time. Anyway, they did a CT scan as protocol and discovered she had a 20-plus cm tumor on her uterus that was wrapping around her right kidney. She was immediately referred to a serious academic hospital and had a specialized oncology surgeon remove it. Amazingly, they got it completely removed without even having to damage the kidney. She had an amazing outcome, and about a half-a-foot scar running around her abdomen from the surgery. Eat it for clarification. I do not believe the CT scan was due to the nosebleed itself, but rather I imagine as they looked further into her blood work and coagulation studies, they found something that warranted further workup. Story 10. Not a doctor, but worked as a security supervisor at a hospital. Man and his wife came in. Man is feeling unwell, thinks he has like a flu or a cold or something. I can't remember exactly what. Nothing serious, but they don't have a family doctor, so they came to ER. Man gets in line for triage and his wife leaves to go park the car after dropping him off. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but how it was explained to me was part of this man's digestive tract just exploded. Because he sits down and within 30 seconds he's slouched over and dead. My guards respond, realize he's not responding or breathing, and pull him onto the floor and start doing compressions. EMS and nurses quickly join us from the back and rush him to a triage room. But whatever happened wasn't recoverable. Wife got back into the ER just expecting him to be hanging out in line. Instead, are met with my guards telling her that her husband is dead in the back with staff trying to bring him back. Like I can't even imagine how that is from the wife's perspective. She leaves with her husband basically fine, and wasn't gone for more than 5 minutes and comes back and he's just gone. I was on break at the time and missed the situation but had to come back and deal with some shell-shocked guards. Story 11, Nadie, but this story is about an elderly but not ancient relative. Background: I had a hysterectomy due to general uterus shenanigans in 2019. My surgeon is awesome. I had a great surgery and easy-peasy recovery. So one day this relative calls me out of the blue and says, "What was the name of the OBGYN who did your hysterectomy?" And I tell her and ask why, knowing that this person has been through menopause for a long-ass time. Wouldn't you know it? I got my damn period this morning. I thought I was done with this shit. Well, my friends, that reaction of, "Oh hell no, I'm done with this shit," turned out to be a lifesaver. Because what she thought was just menopause being weird turned out to be endometrial cancer caught super early. She had a hysterectomy, 1 round of radiation, and is cancer-free 3 years on. Bleeding after you've been through menopause is suspicious as hell, yins.